Hey, I'm Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond, and in this video, I have a super special treat for you. In this video, I'm going to be interviewing my friend, Dr. Lori, who is going to tell us all about how we can separate school from life, our personal lives. This is perfect for you if you've ever felt schoolwork creeping into your nights, your weekends, or you've ever just felt like your work-life balance is out of whack. Dr. Lori is going to have some amazing practical strategies to help. So let's go ahead and dive in. Hey, Lori, welcome.
Hi, Allison. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. Would you tell our viewers just a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. And if I keep looking down, I can see you down here. So if I'm not right looking at the camera, I'm looking at you.
Same. I'm looking at you too. So
Yeah. Well, hey there. My name is Dr. Lori Friesen. I'm so excited to be here. I'm host of the Beginning Teacher Talk podcast. Allison's been on my podcast before a couple of times. It's been so much fun getting to know you over the past year. I'm creator of the Ready for School Academy, and I really believe that just because you're a beginning elementary teacher, there is no need for you to struggle like one with the right support. I taught elementary school for about 10 years in Canada, in Hong Kong, and in Japan. I've taught at the college and university level, and I've taught kids aged 2 to 72, especially in Japan. It was so much fun. I had all these, anyway, those are stories for another time. And it's my goal and my mission to be the mentor for new teachers that I wish I had when I first started teaching, so that you can become the teacher that you've always dreamed of being. So, and
I
listen
love
to the
that.
end of this show today, because we have really something very special to share with you too.
Yes, we do. So, of course, this episode is perfect for you, whether you've been teaching for, 0 years or 40 years. I think these concepts are going to be really helpful, but we do have something extra special for our brand new teachers. So, super excited to share that. Thanks, Lori. Okay, so we are talking about the art and practice of separating school from life, a little bit of work-life balance. And Lori, I wonder, why do you feel like this topic is so important and relevant to discuss?
Well, I think, as we all know, anyone who's teaching knows that teaching is one of those jobs where it's really difficult to see the end point of every day, even though we have contracted hours. I'm going to use air quotes. We don't really ever stay within our contracted hours. And especially if you're a new teacher in your first 5 years, that learning curve is so steep. So I think one of the reasons that new teachers work so many hours, I mean, of course, we have a lot to learn and the learning curve is steep, but it's really hard to discern what is actually essential and what can be put off to later, because it feels like everything's important, right?
Yes.
And also, we feel like we're kind of being judged all the time. We're getting evaluated by our administration. We're feeling external pressure from parents and from other people who come into our classrooms. And we feel like we have to have it all together all the time. And so I think we get, especially when we aren't feeling confident anyway, we don't feel like we have it all together. We end up with this huge, overwhelming feeling of we can never do enough because we don't know what we're doing yet, because we have no gauge of knowing how much enough even is. So I think for all those reasons, it's really hard for us to understand, how do we separate then this professional life, our school life, from our private life, because it feels all consuming. We can't cut it off. So if this is happening with you, and your viewers, I really encourage you to take a breath, because it isn't your fault if you're feeling overwhelmed. And I think there's two parts to this that we're going to talk about today. It's really in part mindset, a kind of letting go that needs to happen. And it's also putting into place some very practical strategies to help us to separate school from home, because I know it isn't easy.
No, it is not easy at all.
Right.
And I think I just want to highlight what you said about like the different pressures that we might feel,
Yes.
from our administration, maybe from parents, and also in ourselves. Like I
Yeah.
know for me, for years, and probably I still do now, like just the amount of pressure that I put on myself to like get it right and like figure it out, and also be building this plane while I'm flying it, was
Yeah.
intense. And
Yeah.
our teachers might not even know how much pressure, they might not even be aware of how much pressure they're putting on themselves. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to pay attention to what our inner voice is telling us, because that can definitely contribute to this feeling of overwhelm and like what you're doing is not enough. So thank you for
Yeah.
saying all that.
Yeah, and it feels kind of like there's just never, until you have a home, like a vacation, like Easter break or summer break, whenever you finally stop, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I would sleep for like 3 days because I think all the pressure just finally came off for a few days or for a week or however long you had the break. But it's so hard when you're in it to even really be aware of it. You're right. I think that's hard.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So when we're trying to separate school life from home life, you know, in theory it sounds wonderful, but the reality is, and you kind of alluded to this already, to-do lists are long. I would even say never ending, because
Yeah.
I don't know, I literally have never felt as a teacher like, oh, I've done enough, like I
Yes.
am done, no more to do. Like literally never had that feeling.
Yeah.
So then how do we decide what is actually essential? And then
Mhm.
also, excuse me, how do we decide when to stop? How do we
Yes.
know when enough is enough?
So I struggled with this for years until I realized that one of the things that's been most helpful for me is that I don't actually keep that big, long to-do list in front of me all the time. I think where I was getting caught up was in my overwhelm was I would see this big, long to-do list. And like you said, I was never getting to the end of it. The moment I crossed something off, there was something else that was added. So I still have a master to-do list, but it's divided into 3 sections. And the first section is things I'd like to work on this year. So it's not time pressured. It's something, this year, it's something I'd really like to do or accomplish or get better at in my classroom. The second section is things I'm going to work on for this month. And the third one is what I need to accomplish this week. And here's the key. I've learned to only give myself what I can actually manage for this week. So even if I feel like it's all super important, I will only put on my weekly to-do list the things that I realistically know I can get done this week. And then I map that into my planner. And I think one of the biggest reasons that we fall into overwhelm, at least for me, is because I look at that big, long to-do list and it's a constant reminder of what I'm not getting done. And that's the hard part. But when you chunk it out that way and you actually start putting things into your calendar in bite-sized pieces, you can see that things will get done and you can start to trust that it's all going to work out. You can start trust that you're actually going to have enough time to get done what you need to get done. Because I don't know if you're like me, it was that list that caused the massive overwhelm.
Yeah.
But when you prioritize what's most important just for this month and just for this week, and you actually put those things into your calendar, it feels much more doable. That feeling for me of overwhelm was tied to not trusting that I was going to get everything done that I needed to. I wasn't trusting myself because I was continually overscheduling myself. But once you start giving yourself that feeling of success by chunking it down and only putting in your calendar what you know you can get done, instead of feeling like you're constantly not doing enough, that psychological shift happens because you realize, wait, I can trust myself to get done what I need to get done. And for me, that was a game changer.
Yeah, I feel like that feeling of trust is so key, because
Yeah.
when you're experiencing those feelings of anxiety and overwhelm, I don't know if you agree with this, but like at the bottom of that is fear. Like
Yes.
I'm not gonna be able to get all this done, like you said, and that's gonna
Mhm.
have XYZ consequence. My kids aren't gonna do well. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna have a good evaluation. So all
Mhm.
of that is kind of just like stemming from that fear. And so, like you said, you have to begin to show yourself, hey, I can get what I need to get done. And I think that that sectioned out to-do list is so smart, because I used to do the same thing where I would have
Mhm.
just this giant to-do list, and it
Yeah.
almost felt like so defeating when it was like,
Yes.
okay, I could barely just keep my head above water without like staying late and working a billion hours.
Yeah.
And then I just like wasn't getting any of the like quote unquote extras done. And it was just staying on the to-do list, and the to-do list was getting longer. And then I didn't have that feeling of success. So I love what you said about
Yeah.
chunking the to-do list and then giving yourself that feeling of success so that you build trust within yourself. I love that.
As opposed to constant failure, right? Like, because that's what
Yeah.
you feel when you look at that list and it's like, oh, I also didn't get this done or this done. Remove it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
even in your view. We don't care about that right now. We just need to get this done.
Yep.
It gives you that white space, right? It's amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So good. Love that. Okay. So once we've looked at our master list, right, and
Mhm.
we have committed to focusing only on getting that most essential stuff done, then what do you feel is the next step or next steps?
Well, you know what happens, right? So you've done this step, you've taken, okay, I'm only going to do this part. But then what happens? Your brain goes into overdrive at nighttime, right? So you wake up in the middle of the night and you've got that a million things to do. And you're like,
Yeah.
wait, I forgot about this. I forgot about that. I forgot. So part of it, my husband trains, it's kind of funny because I've been like trying to train my brain over the last few years to be willing to not have meetings in the middle of the night. It's like, we've got to have a meeting. We've got to have a meeting. And he's like, who are these people that you're having meetings at the middle of the night? I'm like, it's my own brain.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I've done that so many times. The
Right. No more
worst.
nighttime meetings.
Yep. Yep.
So what I've started to do, because that was such a bad habit for me, and I still do it from time to time, but I also realize, okay, this is normal. It's just my brain trying to remind me of the things that I need to do. And so what I do, you might do this, I keep a notepad beside my bed. And when I wake up in the middle of the night with, oh, I have to, the act of just getting up for a second and writing it down, getting it out of my head so I won't forget, because I think we're going back to fear of forgetting something.
Yes. Yes.
I won't forget it. In the morning, it's right there. I can grab it, that sticky note, and I can take it with me to school. And I'll be like, okay, which part of this list does it go on? Is it actually something I need to do this week? Or is it just something I was thinking about in the future? I'm like, oh yeah, eventually I need to work on that. So that was the one thing that really worked for me. And I use it all the time. I have my sticky notes everywhere. I mean, we're teachers, right? We're stuck to our sticky notes.
Yeah.
But that's all it takes is that little, and then I can transfer it to wherever it needs to go in the light of day when I'm not having my meetings.
Your meetings. I love that. Like I have the same thing with, yeah, like wake up in the middle of the night and have these like racing thoughts. Writing it down definitely helps. And I just like the idea of calling it a meeting. You're like, this meeting is adjourned. Like
We don't need
we're
this
wrapping
meeting.
up this meeting. We've got our meeting notes. Nope, this meeting is done. I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, we've talked about, like getting the essentials on our master list and then, writing things down so we don't forget about in the middle of the night, trying to give ourselves permission to let the rest go.
Yeah.
What else can we do?
Well, I think especially for new teachers, but all teachers. I mean, this was something I worked on for all 10 years that I was teaching, was working on tips and tricks to streamline my planning. Because I realized, and we could talk for hours about this as well, but planning is a skill that we aren't really taught very much of in college or university. So I started working on ways that I can improve my planning and streamline my planning, because I wanted to be that teacher that left with my students at 3:30 and I didn't know how to do it. I was like, what do I do? So I started asking all sorts of master teachers and people in my grade level, like, what do you do? How do you plan? And I'll share some of the tips about what has worked for me to streamline my planning, because this is all about buying time back. It's about building in more white space. And by taking things away and getting smart about what you're currently doing, that's how you do it. So some of the things I did was I started to learn how to batch my planning. You probably did this, Allison. I'm sure you did. But
Yeah.
for me, yeah, I chose Wednesday evenings as my planning evening every night, every week. And so I knew on Wednesdays, I would bring my dinner to school. I would plan to stay there until 7 or 8 at night until I got my planning done for the whole week. And I learned to batch by planning by subject. So I would plan all of my language arts for the entire week, period. Like I would do all of that first, list everything I needed to do, everything I needed to photocopy. Then I would plan all of my science and social studies and look for curriculum connections across the different subject areas. But batch planning in one subject area, I don't know if this was true for you, Allison, but I found that when I started with my language arts, because it was so core, I could then start see connections between the other ones, but I knew what I was doing all week. And then I could much more easily build those connections and also plan so much more quickly, because I took everything out for language arts first, and then everything out for science, and then everything out for social studies and math, right? All of your different areas. And then I would keep 2 lists beside me as I planned, one for things that I needed to copy and another for things I needed to buy or get. So as I'm planning my language arts, for example, I'd put sticky notes, tabs with numbers of how many copies I needed for each book and set it aside. So at the end of my planning, I had all of my resources right there. I could go to the photocopier, make all of my copies all at once and not have to do it again. And then another list for things I needed to buy or gather that I would take home with me, and I would gather those things throughout the week. And simple things like that helped me to really streamline my planning and to plan out the week in far less time, when I tried to plan for, each day at a time, which is what I did at the very beginning. And I left with my kiddos at 3:30 on Friday, and I usually didn't go back unless I was doing something special. But I
Yeah.
didn't really ever go back on the weekends to plan again. It was Wednesday nights, and that was amazing. So that's another way to help separate your school from home life, because I could leave my teaching on Fridays. I know people are probably like, what? No, it's true. It's very possible. You
Yeah.
can definitely do it. It's just a practice and a skill set that we have to work on over time. So don't expect to do it right away, but start taking the steps to get there.
Yep. Yep. Batching helped me a lot too, especially that, sitting down and doing all your plans for the week. My night was Thursdays. And what you said about planning for one subject at a time was really helpful for me as
Mhm.
well. And I don't want to like overwhelm new teachers, but if you've been at this for a while, what I actually like to do is I'll, type up lesson plans for even like 2 weeks at a time, or depending on how in depth they are, 3 weeks. And I'll just have this running document. This is
Mhm.
assuming you're typing your plans, right? You could also just copy it by hand, but then I would literally just cut and paste those individual like lesson descriptions or whatever
Yep.
into my weekly lesson template. And for whatever reason, it's just been really helpful for me to think about like, okay, I'm getting in the science mindset. Now I'm only
Yes.
planning science. And then did I have to rearrange and make adjustments? Yes. But I at
Yeah.
least had most of the thinking done, right? Because we
Mhm.
don't think about when you sit down to plan science, it's not just like, oh, I instantly sit down and I like am go, 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 go. No, we have to like take the stuff out, get our brains in that, like,
Yep.
that science zone. So all of that stuff takes time. So I
Mhm.
love that you talked about batching because I agree that it can be super helpful. So yay
And I love
batching.
that idea of keeping a running document that way, because once you get into the content planning of here are the skills that we're building on, it's hard to get back into that to think of the logical next step.
Yes.
But when you've done it for a couple of weeks, it's like, oh, right, that's why we were doing that activity. Okay, right, we need to come back to that objective or review that or whatever it is that they didn't quite get. And I think that's a really smart way of doing it. Yeah, I wish
Yes,
I thought of that.
absolutely.
Awesome.
It helps a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, what else can we do? I know you've got more tips to separate school from
Yep.
home.
Yeah, and I think this one is might be a reminder for experienced teachers, but it's definitely a must for new teachers, and that's setting office hours
Mhm.
where you're going to be in communication with parents and let them know that these are your office hours. I think we make the mistake of thinking we need to be there for our students and for the parents 24 hours a day, but you are, I mean, even though we're going to laugh at this, you're contracted for 40 hours a week. We
Mhm.
don't work just 40 hours a week. But think about how crazy it would be if you had a problem, a surgery coming up, for example, and you wanted to talk to your surgeon on Sunday morning and you're worried about something, there's no way that your surgeon is going to answer the phone on Sunday morning. And we're professionals. You've taken a degree, you've worked for 4 years to earn this degree. And I think we need to take our time back. We need, because no one's going to do it for us. We've fallen into a trap as educators. I think we have let people take over our lives in too many
Mhm.
ways. We love our students, but we have a life outside of our students. And when your dog gets sick, when your mom needs help, when your mom is aging, your job is not going to be there for you. So I really encourage you to prioritize your life and still care for your students. We love our students, but remember that your life happens outside of school. And when you do have your own family, especially if you're a new teacher and you're young and you haven't started your own family yet, I think it's going to become even more essential that you do have those times. So I always said to my parents at the beginning of the school year, and I wrote in my newsletter, I'm available from 3:30 to 4:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you have something urgent that you need to talk to me about, you can always email me or text me. But I really tried to only answer emails and phone calls between certain hours. So setting boundaries is going to be really helpful, and sticking to them, not feeling guilty about it, is going to be the biggest thing for you in terms of separating school from life.
Yes, and I love how you were, clear with parents. Hey, I'm available for from these
Yeah.
times, so they feel like
Yeah.
they can still get a hold of you. It's not like you're unavailable. But yeah, I think it just comes back to not being able to pour from an empty cup. Like I
Yes.
know the days that I'm feeling drained and tired, and like I've mostly worked with little ones, so you need a lot of energy for them. I'm just not the same when I come in and I'm just dragging,
Yeah.
like I fake it, but
Yep.
you don't
Your
bring the
heart
same
isn't
thing to
in
the
it.
table. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your heart isn't in it when you're that tired. And parents get that. I mean, they're tired too. They get, there's time that you need
Mhm.
to have to yourself. And that's important to have as a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the
I'm
last
gonna
thing,
I was
sorry.
gonna say, can I like slide in another extra question here?
Yeah.
Uh, Nowadays, I know that teachers sometimes will give their personal cell phone number
Mhm.
out to parents. What are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. In fact, it's so interesting that you asked me that because I was going to put that into today's talk. And then I thought, I don't know what your personal thoughts are on that, but personally, I never would do it. And I actually I often, how do I phrase this? I probably most of the time, unless I knew the parent really well, would not even take a phone call from a parent unless I had administration there or a team member or somebody who could back me up. Because if there's something that's going on, if there I have an upset parent, for example, I need to protect myself. And I think we need to take a little more care in thinking about that, because it is challenging, especially in our litigious society today, to protect ourselves. So, I mean, there's many times when you have great parents and they're calling to offer help, and that, and it's a warm and inviting atmosphere. But I still wouldn't give my personal cell phone. I would have the school call. I don't know if do schools even have phones in their classrooms anymore? I mean,
I mean,
hopefully
I
they do.
always I always did before becoming a reading specialist, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I always tell my teachers, I would recommend you use email or even text if you need to, if you're going to use a personal cell phone, because then there's a paper trail for
Mhm.
any conversation that you've had with a parent. So that's my personal thought on it.
Yeah, I don't give out my cell phone to parents
Yeah.
for that reason. I just want to protect myself
Yeah.
and also make sure I have good boundaries. One thing that you can do is you can get a free Google Voice number.
Right.
You can actually use that on a computer. You could even, there's an app for your phone, but you have a different phone number than your
Yeah.
actual phone. And you can even like, you can delete the app, you can turn off notifications. So
Yeah.
if teachers do feel, and I know especially like younger teachers might feel like that cell phone is so important to be able to communicate, you can still create boundaries around it, but you might want to
Mhm.
consider a Google Voice number. And then, of course, always refer back to what your district policy is. Like, read your
Yes.
handbook because you may already have something in there that's like, you may not share your cell phone with parents. Perfect.
Yeah.
Done.
And same thing with social media. I mean, having a
Yeah.
social media presence and connecting with parents on your personal Facebook page, for example, a big no-no in a lot of districts. So I think being aware of what your district policies are, and also just, again, keeping that boundary is so important.
Yeah, and I will still say, like, speaking from personal experience, you can have very like warm,
Yep.
friendly, connected, relationships with families
Yeah.
without while still maintaining those boundaries. I know because I do it, so
Yeah.
it's totally possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me sneak that question in there. Any final tips, Lori, on how we can separate school from life?
I think the last thing I would encourage you to think about, and I say this because I am a recovering like busyaholic, I basically call myself. We may be addicted to busyness. Like in
Yeah.
our society, I think we have come to believe that if we aren't busy, we aren't productive. And it's kind of like busyness becomes like a drug almost. Like the
Mm-hmm.
busier we are, the more productive we think we are, more we get done, the more accomplished we feel, and the more kind of externally validated we feel, because it feels so good to like check everything off of our to-do list. I know it does
Yeah.
for me, at least. It's like, yes, like another hit, like I'm so excited.
Yep.
And there's something so productive and satisfying about having a productive day. But I think we need to need to start trying to separate busyness from being productive. And I think that's why limiting items on my to-do list has been so freeing for me, because I can feel productive and like I've accomplished something every day without needing to be busy all the time. So I think it's subtle, but it's an important distinction. So we can be accomplished and productive and get the most essential things done while still giving ourselves that white space and not need to be busy all the time. One of my biggest regrets was not just being with kids sometimes in the classroom. We could just
Mm-hmm.
are so busy with what else do I need to do? And if we could just slow down and spend that time with kids, it means the world to them. and they know when we're present. They know when we're distracted. So I think that that's one other final subtle check that I would do. I know it's hard to do, especially if you're addicted to. I kind of think of it like butter popcorn. When you first stop giving yourself the pleasure of butter popcorn. I used to love butter popcorn every Saturday night. And I'm like, I love butter popcorn. I want to have it. I want to have it. But then I was like, I don't think that's very good for me. So I stopped having it. And the moment I cut it off, I was like, oh, no, I have to have it. It's kind of like that with busyness for me.
Yeah,
When I
it
cut
is.
things out of my schedule, it's almost like I need to fill that time. Okay, I've completed everything on my list, but I need to fill that time. You don't need any more butter popcorn. I mean, you can still enjoy,
Yes.
enjoy the day, right?
Yep.
I think that's the final thing I would say is that, of course, we can have butter popcorn every now and then, but that list is going to call to you, and we get to discipline ourselves to say no to it. So that's the practice part of separating ourselves from the busyness of life. And it is a practice. It takes time, but we can do it. And we have to do it if we're going to stay in the profession and eliminate burnout, right? That is the key.
Yep.
Because no one's going to do it for us.
Nope. Accurate. Love it. Okay. Yeah. So Lori, I guess, why don't you wrap this up for us? Would you mind, we've gone through 5 main strategies. Would you mind resharing those strategies? And then after that, would love for you to share where our viewers can find out more and those treats we mentioned.
Sure. So we talked about 5 main things today. The first one is to create a master to-do list. We probably already have one that's a mile long, but divide it into 3 different sections. Things I'd like to work on this year, this month, and this week. And then only, number 2, give yourself permission to let the rest of it go, but only put this week into your planner, and try using a notepad at night to write down those thoughts as they keep coming up. If you start having meetings at night, you can cut them off by saying, I'm taking notes for my meeting. These are the minutes for the meeting, and we're done. Step 3, create more space throughout your week by streamlining your planning. Even if you just try one thing out each week or each month to start streamlining it, those small steps over time, you're going to buy your time back. It's going to be amazing for you. Number 4, ensure that you're setting and sticking to office hours, especially when it comes to interacting with the parents of the students you're teaching. I know how tempting it is to feel like you need to be there for them all the time. You can still be there for them without being at their beck and call. Yeah. And number 5, realize that, like me, you might actually be addicted to busyness, but the way to separate school from life is to practice separating. And the way we do that is by choosing not to maintain the busyness. We don't need to do that. We need to give ourselves more time to fill ourselves up. So
yes, I love all of these, Lori. Okay, where can our viewers go to follow you and learn more and get the goodie you mentioned?
Yeah, you can find me at Beginning Teacher Talk on Facebook and on Instagram. And I also host the Beginning Teacher Talk podcast. So every week, like Allison, I'm always sharing fresh new tips for especially new teachers, but I have a lot of veteran teachers who've come and said, this isn't just for new teachers. What are you talking about? So definitely come and connect with me on either of those platforms. I'm trying TikTok. I don't know about you, Allison. I think you are.
I'm like slowly getting into it with help. Yes.
I need help. So that's where you can find me, sort of on TikTok.
Sort of on TikTok. All right. Yeah. Love it.
Yep.
And then there was, I think, one more thing you wanted to share.
Yes. Now, if you're in the first few years of teaching and you really need help with, we've talked about some things about streamlining what you're currently doing in your classroom, and you want to up-level your practice, I really invite you to join my masterclass. It's completely free. It's called 4 Secrets to Success in Your First Years of Teaching, what to do this summer to ensure you're ready for the school year. And I have lots of goodies and bonuses for you just for showing up live, as well as a 1-hour PD certificate. And when you register for the masterclass, you'll also be invited into my exclusive time-limited pop-up Facebook group, which is so much fun. We're going to be giving away daily prizes, including a MacBook Air computer. So you don't want to miss it.
That's a good prize. I need to get
I know, it's going to be so much fun. Well, can you imagine if you're a new teacher, you got a MacBook Air computer? I mean, oh, so fun. I love being able to do this. So to get invited to this special experience, all you have to do is sign up for my free masterclass at drlorifriesen.com/masterclass. And maybe we'll give you the link because nobody gets my name right, drlorifriesen.com. And Allison,
we'll put it with this video for sure. Okay, so make sure to look for the link.
I'm so excited. Allison and I have been working behind the scenes. We've been partnering to give new teachers an amazing bonus when they sign up to be part of the Ready for School Academy. I adore Allison. I know you do too. So I'm so excited that we get to work together. We're opening the doors on May 17th to May 26th in 2022. So if you're watching this later than that, you can still connect with me on any of the platforms and I'll let you know how you can get involved. But if you decide to enroll in the Academy, you will get an amazing bonus that will teach you how to get started with teaching language arts in kindergarten to fifth grade. So you will essentially get your first 2 weeks all set up and mapped out to get you started in all grades. So we're partnering with another amazing teacher named Sarah Marie. She's of the Stellar Teacher Company, and she's giving you everything you need for grades 3, 4, and 5. And of course, Allison will set you up for success in K through 2. So I really encourage you to come to my free masterclass and to learn more at drloriefriesen.com/masterclass.
Amazing. This is going to be
Yeah, it's
so
gonna be so
fun.
fun.
All right. Well, thanks, Lori, for being here. Appreciate you. If you're watching this, thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.